Welcome to this week's episode of Being Human. I'm here with Marina Efaimoglou. She is joining us from her retreat, Euphoria Retreat. I'm guessing that's where you are, or at least close by to that.
I'm not actually there. I'm in Athens, but you know.
Okay, you're joining us from Athens, but you run the Euphoria Retreat.
I had to be in Athens for some business,
Right, which is near Sparta in Greece. And so, Marina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody.
Right, and so this show is called Being Human. I mean, I think there's so many aspects of your story which I think will be interesting to our listeners. I mean, what you're doing at the retreat, we can definitely get into, but also your backstory. You were a banker, you're a cancer survivor, and obviously you flipped to now be running this retreat. Where do we start the story of Marina?
I'm all yours, so it's up to you. We can start backwards, or we can start. We can take it, chronologically. So it's totally up to you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take you. Yeah. Let's take the story up to you becoming a banker. Set the scene.
So, I was A-type personality, quite competitive, a really good student. So it was easy for me to decide what I wanted to do. I did my studies both in Greece and in London, the London School of Economics. I did 2 degrees, economics and then sociology, psychology, joint major. And then I went to do a master's in economics in the London School of Economics. So my career was setting that way. My family is an entrepreneurial family. So not a lot of talk about alternative therapies. It was more on the business world and in the politics and in finance. So, following that path and being the first of 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy, imagine that. So I went, I started working at the bank in Wall Street in New York, and then returned back home and became the treasurer of an investment bank in Greece. So I was having fun with my career work and quite stressed, but enjoying it. I was quite young, in my 20s. And then out of the blue, I had just gotten married 1 year ago. Something was not feeling very well, I was playing tennis and I didn't have enough energy. And I was having a lump here. So I decided to go for a scan. And to cut a long story short, they diagnosed me with a very aggressive non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. At that time, I'm talking about early 90s, was quite deadly. They gave me a 20-25% survival rate. Decided to go to New York to do chemo there. And they suggested a very toxic experimental chemotherapy. But otherwise, I was in good health. So I decided to go for that, which was shorter. And for me, that was also important. And my husband and myself, and for much of the time, my mother, we moved to New York, where my 2 sisters were studying. And, I went through this toxic chemo, through a lot of pain, but through, believe it or not, beautiful moments, because I felt the love of everybody, of my family, of my friends. They would even come to New York to visit. I felt that I was always, an open and enjoying life. But that time I realized that how important it is to be well and to live well. So let's say the juices, the love of life was even more intense while I was doing human. And I remember I was doing chemo. So I still remember sometimes, people walking by, and I felt like, oh my God, when I feel good again with my body, I'm so going to live it as much as I can. So and still, if you talk with my family, there is this sweet and sour moment. So it was not just a bad time, but it had of emotionally strong and uplifting moments.
Right. Yeah. And the chemo itself, so it was successful. I mean, you described it as toxic, but it worked for you.
Yeah, it was successful. And even from the first chemo, the lump, which was here, decreased by 50%. So I remember that even time when I vomited, and instead of saying, oh my God, I feel so bad, I was like, okay, the bad cells are leaving my body. And I would, it was the first time that I got in tune with my inner healer, let's put it that way. And I would put my hands here and I would imagine the good cells, my T cells and my immune cells, going after the bad cells. So that was, when my father was calling from Greece and he was saying, he was asking how I was feeling, I was trying to cheer him up. So as I said before, there was this strong moments. So it was not so bad.
And how much do you ascribe your healing to the drugs versus what sounds like a very kind of empowering and positive attitude to your healing?
It would be arrogant to say that, I did it and not the drugs. I believe that it's always a combination, I even believe in miracles. And I believe that I really had the opportunity to go. My soul had decided to give me a huge test, and I had the opportunity to go, but obviously I had the opportunity to stay. So I think it was a combination of drugs, of being taken care, but also of a positive attitude. And I think that the second part, the positive attitude and rejoicing about and feeling that I had the gift of life, life was given to me again, was more important for the second part of not getting ill again.
Okay.
And that was, that was a difficult part, because when I left New York, the tumor was not there, but I was still 50-50 to get it back. And if I would get it back, then it would be a lot of chances that, I won't make it. So at that time, I think the psychological and the emotional attitude was very, very important, because it was not the drugs, but it was how I handled life from that moment. And, and it's something that I want to say to other, possible cancer people that are going or have been through cancer. That is, the one thing is during the chemo, but even most importantly is afterwards. What do we do with our life? For me, the hugest gift that cancer gave me is that I felt that there is a purpose, that there's a reason why I'm still alive. And I had to explore that. It's not that anybody told me you got sick because of that, or you have survived because of that, but that was the quest of life. And that made life even more interesting. So, and since then, a lot of people that have been through cancer have come, for some advice. And this is the first thing that I would say. It is so important to find a purpose in your life. And by doing so, by trying to find a purpose in your life, that's what makes life beautiful. Because life is both beautiful and both difficult. So, and I knew that since I was quite young, because when I was 12 years old, I lost my sister. So, and I was living a good life. But even at that time, I knew that life has difficulties. It's not a golden cage, or it's not. But even in difficult times, life can be beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And so what was your sense of purpose during that period, during that period you were having chemo?
First of all, it was it was not something concrete, because I didn't know, but it was important to have loving relationships with the people that surrounded me. So that was the first thing that at that time I could understand, because I knew how much they were supporting me. And I felt that creating fruitful, creating heart-opened and compassionate and sensitive human relationship is always a part of our life.
Right.
So that was what I had discovered then. And afterwards, I would, there were other things that would come in my quest for my journey of life. But creating and harmonious human relationships are very important.
Yeah, and I suppose there's evidence when you talked about your father calling you and you taking it on to cheer him up, right? So you had purpose and meaning in those interactions. It sounds to me like you weren't identifying as like the cancer victim struggling with cancer.
No, not at all.
That seems to be important here. You were very much identified with this purpose of maintaining your loving relationships, which is very different.
That is a good point. I mean, and that's a point we need to touch upon, because a lot of people feel victim. The victim of life, the victim of circumstances. And I was 29 years old, and I was, I had big chances of dying, and I never felt a victim. I felt that there is a reason, even though I didn't know what was the reason, but I felt a victim. And I would remember putting a specific song by Roy Orbison and dancing, even when I was not feeling good. But, and I'm a person, as I said before, I'm a competitive person, A-type personality. So I tend to get angry. But at that time, the anger was only about whatever I had to do to get my treatment, as well as, it was not about life. It was not anger about God. A lot of people have asked me, aren't you angry at God? But I was not. I felt that there is a higher wisdom, which I didn't know. But it soothed my soul to believe that, everything happens for a reason. And now with what I know now, I know this is the lesson of the metal element of the fall season, that everything happens for a reason, and there is divine providence, and there is meaning in life. It's not just a haphazard sequence of events, but we are here to give meanings to this haphazard event sequencing.
Right. And it's interesting because you talk on the, I was reading on the Euphoria Retreat website, this concept of the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. And I just reflecting on your description there, you have this spiritual idea that this is a test, and you're making meaning of it in terms of maintaining these relationships. At emotional level, you're sort of feeling some joy as the bad cells leave, So it seems like you're kind of tuned in on all three levels, and then clearly you're giving yourself whatever you need physically to go through the process.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying, the meaning of life is the spiritual aspect, and accepting what happens is the spiritual aspect. The emotional is maintaining harmonious relationship with ourselves, with first of all, and with the surrounding. And the physical aspect is doing whatever it takes. I remember having a conversation with my aunt, and she had cancer and she died for cancer. And I was saying that I was willing to do whatever it takes. If they needed to hang me upside down, I would do it. So that is the physical aspect. And then the physical aspect is also very important afterwards, as I said before, like the spiritual and the emotional. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because after chemo, I had to find ways to detox myself. I've got so much chemo, and I wanted to, recharge my immune system. So this is when I started checking out places that they were offering detoxes, from juice fasting to raw food to, I've tested everything. Part of my routine while I was still a banker was to detox myself. And in detox, So even, and going back chronological, it's quite interesting because a lot of people think that after chemo, after the cancer, I left the banking world, but it didn't happen that way. 6 months out of chemo with the hair like this, we started, and I'm saying, my two partners and myself, we started a small investment banking firm, which turned to be the success stories of the 90s in Greece. So that was, again, myself of, wanting to live life at the fullest. And instead of worrying whether in my checkup I'll have cancer again, I wanted to do something that I felt passionate. At that time was banking. which I felt passionate. It was my own business, and we started. I was less than 30, and we started our own firm. So,
wow.
And I couldn't have
That's
babies
awesome.
at that time because of what I've been through. But Telesis was my baby then. So it was, it was passionate. It was interesting, and it had its reason. So, and while I was a banker, I was doing my meditation. I was doing my detoxes. I was going to places like that, meeting spiritual people, and
This was all
slowly.
after you'd done the first chemo.
Yes. This
Right.
was in the 90s after I got the first chemo. Before I thought about creating Euphoria, but I was a different banker. And even
and
as
what did your banker friends think of you? Like the hippie friend did you become?
I didn't care so much.
Good for you.
I didn't even dress, the banking. I was dressed much more colorful than the other bankers. I mean, I was in Greece. I had a much more, it was easier. And I was a very young woman among, these bankers. But, what we did convinced them. And also, we did a lot of socially responsible things in our bank. We had a target that 10% of our profits would go to good causes. So even then, we did that. And we gave shares to our employees. And so it was an investment bank which was much more progressive than its time.
Right, yeah. I'm an investment bank with soul. I never expected to say that sentence. But there we go.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're doing your juicing. So yeah, what were the things that you found that worked from a detox perspective? Because there'll be people with corporate careers listening to this, maybe thinking about detoxing. What did you find worked?
At that time, I said I tried a lot of detoxing. I mean, I did some juice fasting. I did raw food. I think, but these were not things that I could sustain in my daily life. So I think that if you do like twice a year, a 3-day intense detox, it works. But that cannot be a way of life. And then what was important is to find what would be a way of life, a daily way of life. So you need this intense detoxes if you can take it, and if you're young enough. Now I wouldn't do it because it has created issues. It created issues with the insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, with doing all these detoxes and not taking appropriate, not being so careful about my weight. I have now metabolic syndrome, which is when you're doing excesses like that. And I was doing a lot of mild cure. So now I believe in a much more balanced way of eating. I'm not a vegan, but I don't eat a lot of meat. I avoid meat, but it's not that I'm vegan. And I think that extremes don't work long term. If you, as I said, do a 3-day detox, juice fasting, yes. I mean, you can do that twice a year, not in the winter, because the winter, the juices are cold energy. So you have to do it when the sun is there. And I'm talking in terms of Chinese medicine perspective. But creating a balanced meals, carbs, proteins, and fat, I think long-term, this is the way to go. And it's sustainable.
Right.
And then doing some more intense when you feel that you can.
Okay. And some people will hear that and they think, well, maybe I already have a balanced, diet. What does that mean, like specifically? What does that tend to mean you focus on?
It tends to have, not to leave your metabolism without food for long times, except if you're doing you're taking the 10, the 12, or the 16 maximum hours, that may work. But during the day, it's not good to live 4 hours from the one meal to the other, because the insulin spikes. So you have to have, for example, I love fruits, but now I don't eat fruits alone. I eat fruits with nuts, carbs and proteins and fats. or I will eat fruits with some yogurt or with some almond milk. I'm trying to balance. That's what I'm saying, balance, have all these types, even in small snacks during the day. And this is what we aspire at Euphoria. We have this homeostatic way of eating, creating balance through the day.
Homeostatic. So and part of that is avoiding these insulin spikes.
Exactly. And, working as a banker, or at a corporate work, you have the insulin because of the way, you have the adrenaline kicks. So you have to have the food balance because your life is full of adrenaline. If your food does not support that and you do these spikes, it makes a havoc in your organism.
Right. And then what's your perspective on processed food? Sorry, go on.
So no, and this is what we do at Euphoria, and we have people that have done juice fasting or have done the miracle, which is good for some time, and they come and they eat a lot, and in the beginning they're surprised and say, "Oh, I didn't have so many carbs," but then they feel much better, and their insulin and their cortisol gradually falls, which is very, very important for a long-term approach to health.
Right, and that's presumably because they're not stressing the body by fasting or depriving of particular nutrients, and especially when I suppose that's the thing. If you've already got a stressful lifestyle, to then stress the system through diet regimes.
And we've seen cases like that, and I've done it to myself. I was saying I was going for juice fasting, and it felt good, but then slowly it created this metabolic imbalance. Right.
That's interesting. Yeah. So the question I had was, there's a lot of critique out there about processed food, like not eating too many breads or anything that's overly processed, trying to keep to whole foods. Is that a focus, or is that something you don't?
For sure. I mean, it is important to cook. It is important to cook your own meal. And I think that one good thing that happened through COVID, through the lockdowns, is that a lot of people started cooking. So, I always read the labels, because the labels, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm about to sneeze.
That's all right.
Okay, so read the labels for definitely processed food, and ready-made food is not good. I mean, we all know that. Sometimes we have to eat some processed food, but at least have at least one, or ideally two cooked meal during the day. Right.
Yeah. Okay, and so that makes a lot of sense, and I think this idea of homeostasis is something I've come to, because I think I've become, when I've worked on my own health, I've become sometimes a little too obsessive. Right, this is the thing I must do, and maybe I need to, and I've done juice fasting and raw food and all of that stuff, but this idea of focusing on reduced stress, and that being like one of the main focuses, I think is a really powerful one.
Yes, and as I said again, we should work in 3 levels. The physical, emotional, and spiritual. And spiritual is the driving force. Ancient Greeks, have you heard of the Asclepia?
Asclepia? No.
Yeah, the god of medicine, Asclepius.
No, not
okay. That was the father of medicine, together with Hippocrates in ancient Greece, and we had this. Asclepia was the spas of the ancient times. So these were places in a beautiful place, in greens, usually in pine forest, not near the sea, but in some kind of elevation, and people would go there, would start eating well. Start taking baths, because the cleansing power of water is very, very important. They would exercise, so that was part of their regime, the ancient Greek healthy regime. But most importantly, and this is what I wanted to refer to, the spiritual aspect, they were coached by the priest of Asclepius, and they would help them find what is wrong in their life, what is wrong in their spiritual life, do they have loving relationships? Do they have a socially responsible life? So the most important, a very important part of their healing was to find the spiritual meaning in their life. And after they've done that, then they would go to do the serious healing in getting maybe some kind of operations and things like that. And I consider Euphoria Retreat a modern Asclepium. So it really helps people find in a sublime way to find why they're here and how they can serve themselves and the world around us. And now with the climate crisis, that is so, it is teaching us that we cannot live just for ourselves. We are a part of nature. We are a part of the planet. So we cannot think as individuals. We have to think as part of the whole system. And that is a spiritual way of looking into life.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful. And when you think, even when people hear of the term retreat, they tend to think about, massages and, salads, right? They're not thinking about spiritual meaning.
Yeah, I mean, that's the good thing about Euphoria. It works in all levels, and it works in a way which is not deterrent. I mean, you don't come here to do just fasting, which a lot of people don't like. You don't come here just to exercise. You don't just come here, just to talk about the meaning of life. It's all there, but it happens in we can say that in a luxury holiday, and it works on you on levels that you understand while you're there, and many times when you left, that something was going on there. And this is the the belief, the ancient Greeks believed that everything goes and everything has to be in moderation. So
right.
No extremes. Even alcohol, we can serve alcohol. So if you deprive yourself of life, if you deprive yourself of people around you, if you coerce yourself into doing 5 hours meditation or yoga or gym a day, that is not a balanced way of eating. And you may have 6 packs, but where is your soul? Yes. Where are your relationships?
Yeah. That's
what we are trying to teach people. And for me, that's the joy of creating Euphoria, that what I've learned through hard times and through fun times, I'm trying to share. And also, I'm not trying to impose it. I'm trying to inspire. That's why our motto is your life, your journey, which means that we respect what is your life and what journey you want to take. It's your decision. It's, again, the ancient Greeks principle of democracy. It's for you to choose, and it's for you to do what you want to do. But let's not forget that with freedom, there is responsibility. So we are trying to ignite the healer inside of anyone in any one of us, and it's an opposite way of approaching spirituality than the Eastern way, because most Eastern societies are not democratic, are very very hierarchical societies. They talk about the guru. So you have to find your spiritual salvation through the guru. You have to obey the guru. You have to obey some very hard discipline, both in Buddhism and Hinduism, and then you can be saved. But this way of spirituality is not akin to the Western mind. Let's not forget that the cradle of the Western civilization in ancient Greek civilization, was about freedom of choice, democracy, and responsibility. So what we're trying to do is bring this type of spirituality, is, let's say, down-to-earth spirituality. It's what you said, a banker with a soul. Who said that the banker cannot have a spiritual life at some point? But it's not that you want to be spiritual if you go to an ashram, if you do headstands the whole day or you meditate. Spiritual is the way you approach life, the way you open up to the life's possibility, and you're open up to explore, and you're open up to connect and give back.
Right. And I love what you say there about, well, I mean, first of all, I love that framing of Western spirituality. And I hadn't considered that distinction. And you're right, that's often a weakness.
Let's create a movement about that.
That is often a flaw, perhaps, in the Eastern approaches, is the focus on the guru.
I've studied Chinese medicine, and I'm doing yoga for more than 20 years, and I love that. But at some point, it doesn't, it creates our like two extreme hippies.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
You cannot live a normal daily life.
Right. I suppose when I think about that, though, the West, in some ways, has fallen into that trap with Christianity and our access, especially Catholicism, our access to God through the priest, and to a lesser extent with Protestantism. But we still have that conduit between us and spirit in some of the Western traditions.
Historically, if you see what happened and why we had to go to Eastern spirituality, you had the Almighty Priest and the Almighty Catholic Church, and to a lesser extent, as you said, Protestant. Orthodox Greek, Eastern Orthodox was a little bit freer, but still you had that thing. So people were alienated from church and alienated from spirituality. And in the 60s, thank God, we had the Beatles, and they created all this flower power movement and going to the Maharaji and going to India. And it was very, very important for the development of the world to have this interaction of the East meets West. So they went there and they tried to find spirituality because they could not find in churches. And then, as we said, some that worked at some level, but at some level didn't work either through drugs or through this this guru type of spirituality that Eastern spirituality advocates. So we're here. We've tested that, and we have to bring this world together. But we have to know what is the soul of the Western people. The soul. It's very difficult to go to one place and be told that what you have to do from morning to night. You can do that for a short term, but then you will react. So we have to find something that works. And these values that we talk for are much more akin to the Western soul than the Eastern spirituality.
Right. Yeah. And I hadn't considered that and made that link between the ancient Greek culture before. But yeah, makes a lot of sense. I wanted to touch on the second cancer diagnosis. Am I right? So you recovered from the first, and then there was another?
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back.
I'm just interested in that part of the story.
Okay, let's go back chronologically. So we're still going to a different banker, do the detoxes and all that. And in 1999, I was still got overworked, and it was the heydays of the stock market. And I go to another spa in Golden Door, and lights up, and I said, "Oh, that's what I want to do next." So I started imagining myself, because I knew that banking was just, I knew that this was not my purpose, but it was there that I realized that that's what I want to do next, and find a way to do it which is authentic to my heritage, but at that time I was still a banker, I started doing more, I started doing daily yoga and meditation. So even more of a different banker. And because I set my intention straight, 2 years after that, we sell the bank. And the moment, I remember that, I was the CEO and the president, and I was doing the announcement. And we had gathered a lot of our employees, and I was talking. And I started crying. And I was, because I knew that was the end, for me. It was something that I would choose, but still. So a couple of years I stayed on the bank that bought us. And then I kept a relationship, a consultant relationship with the bank. And then I started traveling all over the world because I didn't want to go straight from a banker to creating a healing center because the energy wouldn't match. I have first to work on myself. And I knew
de-bankify yourself.
I was too much young, too much, I had to find, some equilibrium. So I had the opportunity to travel. I had the opportunity to study with most amazing teachers. all the known names out there. I still at that time was looking for my guru. I felt this notion that I have now to find my guru. Who's going to save me? Who's going to open the doors for me to be enlightened? And in the beginning, it was a big disappointment, because in the banking world, yes, I knew that there was competition. I knew that there was, let's say, a lot of egos and a lot of arrogance. But I discovered, and that was a shock to me, that in the spiritual world or in the healing world, there's so much competition, and there is so much arrogance. Spiritual arrogance in another way. I mean, I remember that my father was saying that the worst type of fanaticism is religious fanaticism. So in the beginning, I was, everybody snubbed me because I had money and I was an ex-banker. But it was good for my personality because I had to go through that. Right. So it was okay. And I discovered, studying here and there. I went to India, I went to Thailand, I went to the States, to, all over the world. Slowly discovering that we are our own healers and we have to find our path. So I started studying various energy medicines. And then I dwelled on the 5 elements, which was fascinating, because it was the point of where 3 main civilizations would conjure: Indian with Ayurveda and the elements of Ayurveda, Chinese, and ancient Greek. So I got really fascinated with the 5 elements, which is a really 4 or 5 elements. It doesn't really make a difference, but it is a holistic way which really aligns body, mind, and soul. So I studied Chinese medicine, and I kept on digging deeper into Greek philosophy to understand more of what was happening there. And it was at that time that I met my dear friend and spiritual mentor of Euphoria Retreat, Marina Efaimoglou. And after a while, we said, let's teach together. I was already teaching energy medicine, but let's teach together. So we combined her. She's an amazing psychic. She's an amazing visionary. She can. She sees worlds that we cannot imagine, but they are so beautiful and that they're up there. So, and she has lived that way in her life. And so, she was doing Zen meditation. She was a dancer. So totally different background than me. And we created our own workshops, and this was basically self-awareness through the 5 elements. And that is the basis.
Self-what through the 5 elements?
Self-awareness through the 5 elements. Yeah. So it was personal development, but also energetic development, and healing and all that. So we created these lines of retreats. We did them in various parts of Greece mostly, and some abroad. And that was the basis of what happened, we now call Euphoria Methodos. And so while doing all that, I'm doing a regular checkup. I found out that I had issues with my breast, and I did the biopsy, and I was diagnosed with a non-aggressive form of breast cancer. And at that time, that was back in 2011. At that time, so 10 years now, at that time, actually this time of the year, 10 years ago, at that time, all what I've studied, all what I've done, I had to test it. Will I go the medical way, which was suggesting that I had to do radiation and some form of chemotherapy, not in a very aggressive one, or can I ignore everything and do it the alternative ways? And it was a tough time, because we were working energetically. I say we, Mary and myself, and with other people. So with other people also I knew, we're working to heal it energetically. At some point, 3 months after, I did another biopsy, but it was still the same diagnosis. And thank God I had time. It was not like the first time that I had to really start doing. So I had time to decide that. And at that time, through a meditation with Mary, I got a very, very defining moment. And my teacher, it was a picture. Like, we have two bags. The one bag is a fear and the other is faith. And the question I was asking is, can I not do anything? And of course, I wasn't getting an answer. We don't get answers like that. But they showed me this image that as long as the bag of fear, this sack of fear is getting less and the bag of faith is getting fuller, yes, I can, I can go the alternative way. And I was very anxious, and I was said, when that is going to happen?
Give me an answer.
Yeah, of course I didn't get an answer, but the answer was that you will know. And, so I was working and working and not working. And then I had, there was, my sister-in-law and my niece of 3 years old got caught in a fire, and my little niece was in intensive care, and we didn't know whether she's going to survive it or not. And of course, I stopped caring about myself. I mean, all my dilemmas, it was not relevant, and I opened my heart to be there for my family, for my brother's family, going every day to the hospital and all that. And so what we say sometimes, my heart broke open.
Right.
And, when all that finished, the work that I had to do, I had done it in some ways. And I also have to say that at the same time, because I was not willing to do radiation, but I was willing to do a further operation and even mastectomy, because I felt that my body could deal with mastectomy, could deal with an operation, but not with the chemo and the radiation. And through another meditation, I was guided to go to see a doctor, a Western doctor. And I go there and say, this is the case. I don't want to do chemo. I don't want to do that. But I'm willing to do mastectomy. And he said, don't rush. We will do another operation. We will clean a big part. And if it's, and we decide after that. And we did that, and they didn't find cancer, and that was it. At that time, I felt that the bug of fear was gone. I was able to believe in miracles, like what happened with my niece, who's was a beautiful 13 years old adolescent right now, and I was able to do what my body felt, but without the fear. And I have to say that this is not an advice for anybody, because as I say, this was a long process. It took me more than 6 months, and I had to do a lot of work. And, sometimes we have to do with the Western, I did another operation. So there is not one recipe for everybody. We really have to tune in to ourselves to find what is the true answer for us. And,
Yeah. What a powerful story. Yeah. But one of the things I'm left with is, and of course, wonderful that your niece made it. I mean, yeah. But one thing I'm struck with there is there's a level there where you put Because as you stayed attuned to this spiritual journey in this, right? You kept going with the meditation. You kept in that inquiry. And even if that inquiry was saying, right, we can't give you an answer now, you stayed with it.
Yes. I mean, yes, I really believe into that. I mean, I really believe that there is life after death, and there is, I mean, you can call it God or whatever. It doesn't, I mean, but there is something more than the material world we see. I mean, it's not a matter of believing, it's knowing. I really know that, it's beyond belief. And I trust that. But at the same time, I trust that we are responsible. So it's not that we will, we have to do our work.
Yeah.
Say we have to do our work, whether it's physical, to taking care of our health, whether it's emotional, having the relationship we need, whether it's spiritual, most importantly. But we have to do our work. And sometimes, yes, miracle happens for a reason we don't know. But in any case, we have to be, to act the best, to be responsible for our life.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And that's certainly been my experience of these alternative modalities, right? That it's, you got to commit and you got to do the work, and it's ongoing work. It's a commitment to a new lifestyle, a new orientation to life. Like, people might listen to this and it might sound far-fetched or miraculous, but really these are just outcomes of working in this way. But it is working in this way. You've got to commit. It is
working, and it's still working. I mean, and it's about crushing the illusionment that you are there. You are never there. Maybe, hopefully, when we die, we will be there. But, I'm not enlightened, and I won't be. I mean, that's a hard work. So you're never there. You have to be. And even Christ was tempted. The last moment, he said when he was he said to his father, "Please take this how do we say in English? This difficult part out of me." So he chickened out the last moment. But because, we're not there. So we're a work in progress, and that's the beauty of it. So
yeah, it's every day. And it doesn't, and that might sound like a grind, but it's certainly my experience. There's this idea that, first of all, we seek to master these things, right? We seek to master, let's say, meditation or yoga or a healthy diet or whatever it is. But in the end, they master us. That's what I found. It's like, I get called to do these things and it still works. But I get called to go and practice yoga or do the meditation or cleansing.
And it's
some
okay
way.
if for sometimes we don't do it. I mean,
exactly.
There's so much. We've transferred the way we think about other things, about work and other things. We've transferred to the spirituality and to this practice. That we have to meditate every day. Yes, it's good to meditate every day, but we cannot beat ourselves if we don't. That's what I'm saying. I'm against beating ourselves for not being enough, because that is the opposite of being a victim. When you're not enough, when you feel that you haven't done enough, then the next thing is that you're the victim. So being okay with who you are, what you're doing at each moment, and feeling that this is okay, that is a very important spiritual practice per se. And that doesn't mean that you don't want to get better, but you don't want to get better in terms of in the mind, but in your heart. What do I mean by that? You have to be guided with your heart, not your mind that says, I have to do, I have to do yoga every day. I have to run every day. I have to jog every day. I have to whatever. It is your heart that tells you at that point what is good for you. And what is good for you is unique to you. I mean, and again, this is what we're trying to help people find, that what is unique for them. So to be lenient, our society is not a lenient society. We're not lenient with the children. We're not lenient with our family. We're not lenient, and first of all, with ourselves. So it is important to be lenient,
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Being lenient doesn't mean that you don't try. It's being lenient. It's feeling okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Because, and that for me is where the sustainability lies, right? It is because as soon as, certainly my experience, as soon as I tell myself I have to, go to the gym 6 times a week or go to yoga, as soon as I'm in that mindset with the head trying to dominate the body, it's not going to last. But if I can come from like, what do I need right now? Like, what would nurture me right now? Like, and maybe it is go eat an ice cream.
Right.
Maybe it's eat an ice cream. Or maybe it is go work out. Or maybe it is meditate, right? Like, and just keep that, to me, is a big part of the work, finding that ability to tune in to our needs, right?
Yeah. I'm so happy that we are in the same line of thinking.
Yeah, well, I suppose what's interesting is I also come from a corporate background, and that is so much dominated by like the cognitive, like top down, do this, achieve that, meet this metric, meet this target, and it's it takes certainly for me, it took a lot of unwinding, right, of that sort of way of being in the world.
That's why I told you I couldn't do it. When we sold the business, we couldn't do it right away because the energy wouldn't be there. I have to go deep. And it's interesting that it took me so much time and so much effort. The bank thing was so much easier than opening up Euphoria. And then we opened Euphoria in 2018 and the COVID happens 1.5 years after. So again, another test.
Wow. Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that young, Euphoria. So it's only a few years old.
3 years old, then which we work like something like 2 because of lockdown.
Right. Yeah. So talk a bit more about the 5 elements. So it's not something I'm particularly familiar with, but it sounds like that's like the centerpiece of, or like a big part of what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated with 5 elements. I can talk forever and ever. But basically, it is how we tune into the energy of the seasons. So, and, to give you a very small, brief description, we start from the winter. Winter is cold, we pack ourselves. It's like the little seed is in the earth, down in the earth, and it's cold. It's dark, and I wait for something to happen. So this is the energy of the winter. The energy of the winter is that, and it has to do with survival, because the winter is much more difficult to survive when we didn't have this our houses and all that. So it has to do with fear. It has to do with the season, with an emotion, and with the spiritual aspect. So the physical body, it is sustaining energy. It is preserving energy in the kidneys and in the bladder, which are the organs of the body that deal with the fluids, with the water, yin and yang. And in the emotional is fear. And the way we work, it is fear is a low frequency energy. We don't talk about negative energies. We talk about low frequency. So we have to bring the middle frequencies. The middle frequencies of water is tranquility, is calmness, is peacefulness in the face of fear. So it's not that we cannot have fear in our life, because fear is part of our life, human existence, but is being in the face of fear with calmness and with a strong will, because we need a strong will in water time. We need the will to survive. And when we do that, we open to the higher qualities of water, which is wisdom. So again, 3 levels. And we move from the water to the little bat which was there, and we go to spring, which is wow. We become these beautiful trees, we blossom, and we have this upward energy. This is the growth energy. So it relates with the body, with the organs that manage, which are the manage. It's the liver and the gallbladder, which they manage the growth, which they manage the liver manage blood. So it has to do with movement and upwards movement. And in terms of emotional thing, what would you say? If you want to grow, you want to become this big tree, and there is an obstacle in front, what would be your emotion there?
Frustration or anger. Yeah.
Okay, anger and then frustration. That's interesting. The Greeks would say anger and then frustration. The Brits would say frustration and then anger. And what do I mean by that? Because in our culture, it's okay to express the anger.
Yeah, that's so true.
Because frustration is when we haven't expressed the anger and we are stuck with this bloody obstacle in front of us. So anger is the first emotion, and anger is an upwards moving energy. So anger can be good. And I'm not saying that we have to be, that we need to express it, but anger is a force that will help lift the stone in front of us, and will help whatever we have hindrances in our growth, that will help us move them. If we don't do that, then we get frustrated. But in order to be able to move the obstacles, we have to have the flexibility, which is the middle level frequencies of spring, of wood or air, according to the ancient Greeks. So we have to have flexibility. We have first to go like that. And we have to have the willingness to share with others. This is part of wood. And when we do that, we open up to the higher qualities, which is kindness and generosity. And if we are if we feel that we are on track of what we want to create in life, and we feel that we want to share. We want to share what we have discovered. We want to talk about it. We want to inspire others. For me, creating Euphoria, I needed a lot of my good energy because I wanted to share what I've been through. And while I'm doing that, and I'm feeling able to share, I feel kind and generous.
Right. Yeah, and is that as in the kind and the generous, and is that are we in fire now, or is that still within?
No, still wood.
Still wood. So we've gone from water and that sense of winter, and
fire is the orgasmic energy of summer. It's like, woo,
okay,
everything is heightened up. It's like that moment, the moment of orgasm. It's not a process. It is becoming one, because fire unites us. So everything is intense. The fear we have found in water becomes rage. The fear becomes panic. The anger becomes rage. Becomes fear, and it's very intense. Fire. The summer. Imagine heat in the Greek summer. It's very intense. So everything is quite intense. And as I said, in the body, it has to do with the heart.
Right. So we're moving up now. We're in the heart, in the fire element. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Heart, and small intestine. The small intestine is I would say with the gut feeling, our intuition, the second brain. So these two have to work together. They have to work together. The intuition, the gut feeling, and the heart. So. And too much heat is bad for the heart, so we have to calm the heat down. So in terms of emotions, as I said, it has rage, it has violence, panic. And then here we need to open up to the middle frequencies, which is gratitude. Whatever happens, I'm okay with that. And gratitude can lead to forgiveness, to be able to open up to the spiritual meaning of fire, which is, as we said, the oneness, but also is love, is compassion, is unison, is that, so from kindness and generosity, which open up the spectrum, our bodies to move into love and to union. Okay. And then we move to, in Greece, it's and in the UK, it's still this is the time of the earth, the Indian summer. So everything subsides. The heat. We have this September, beautiful, still not warm, not too much warm, not too much cold. So it is the harvest time. It is the season of the earth element, and we are called to digest what has happened to the previous seasons. So we are talking about the digestive system, stomach, spleen, and pancreas. And the pancreas has to do with giving us the sense of life is sweet. So from, the pancreas has to do with the sweetness. So if we have a good, healthy digestive system, then we can feel that life is sweet. From the passion of fire, now we go to contentment, to it's okay, everything is okay. I take my time. I invite people for a lunch or for a dinner, and we talk over and we share our experiences. And for those of us that still in my generation, we would print up the photos of the summer and we would open the photos, and it was such an excitement to open the photos. And we would share our experiences. We take our time. So this is the grounding, balancing energy of Earth. And if this hasn't happened, and we said, oh my God, I should have gone to Greece and not Italy. I should have gone to, I haven't called my mother enough. And I should have done and that, the monkey mind and the doubts. And, all these are lower frequencies of Earth. Anxiety, doubt, shame. Oh, I'm ashamed that I didn't do that, all that. This is the lower frequencies. And as I said before, we have to bring in the acceptance of, and that everything goes, that small is enough, plenty, enough is plenty. This is the sense of Earth, to open up to the higher frequencies, which is abundance, which is altruism. Because Earth is the safety that Earth provides us, that the Earth can nourish everybody. So if we feel that we are nourished, we feel safe. We feel safe and we don't feel anxious and overworking our mind.
Right.
And then the last season is the metal season, according to the Chinese, the ether, according to the ancient Greeks. And it's the alchemical process of doing the whole, doing the work and being there, that we assimilate what we've learned. What happens in nature in the fall? The trees let go of their leaves, but they stay, they keep on the juices that will help them flourish again. So this is the process. This is the process that we have to do in the fall time. We have to let go of what no longer serves us. We have to, and what would be the emotion there if we have, we have to let go of what, when we have to say goodbye to some things that didn't work, or some people in our life that they have no longer reason to be part of that. What is the feeling there?
That's sadness, yeah.
Exactly, that's sadness, that's grief, that's melancholy. And then again, we have to express that, and our society, as we said before, for anger, does not really allow us to express sadness and mourning. In Greece and in some Mediterranean countries, when someone dies, we mourn for 3 days, and we have special ladies that would tear their clothes up and will help everybody express their sadness and their grief. If we don't do that, then we end up in depression. So every emotion has to be expressed in order to be able to transform the energy of the element into higher. If we don't express it, it becomes frustration in wood. It becomes cruelty in fire. It becomes, here in the fall season, in the metal, it will become depression.
Right, and that in and of itself, this is wonderful, getting the tour, but also just that statement in itself is so profound when you think about the levels of depression right now, especially in Western societies. Right, this is blocked grief for so many of us, and we don't
exactly,
and we don't see it.
And we go from frustration to grief because there's a special relationship between the two. So we go from frustration to that. So it is important to express our emotions, and metal has to do with the lungs. So grief stays in the lungs. We cannot breathe properly, and we get shorter and shorter breaths, and then we don't live. So, and I want to say something about the inspiration for the Feel Alive that we're doing now at Euphoria. It is that through the pandemic and through the lockdown, first of all, there was so much fear. But even more, there was grief. And because we were alone, we were not able, and we don't know how to express that. That got stuck into us. And and we were more vulnerable to COVID because of the emotional state of our lungs. And also when the world started opening up, it was like we were afraid to take a big breath. We were taking small breaths, because we were really afraid to start living again. And that's what we wanted. That was the message that we started this summer. We're continuing this fall, is that we have the uncertainty of when COVID is there. It's not going to be gone even next year. So we have to find a way to be happy and accept and live our life at the fullest with this uncertainty. In a way, it's kind of what I said, and it's much more difficult when you're doing chemo, that even during chemo, life can be beautiful. Even through difficulties, life can be beautiful. So even more now, we have to start feeling alive again. We have to start seeing people. We have to travel, take our precautions, and do whatever we can and whatever one feels that. But start living again. It's like we are like this, waiting. But that is detrimental to our bodies and even more detrimental to our soul.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, obviously people have the opportunity to go out, and it sounds like to your wonderful retreat, but also just at home. Like this is such an important message. Feel your feelings. And yeah, that's just a huge message of this podcast is like, feel your feelings, but also the way you tie it into the spiritual. And that's been entirely my experience. The more I've been able to grieve and let go and feel into myself, the greater the opening I have for these higher practices, right? And these higher meditations.
We are like, how we say that goes like that. The ekremes, oh my God, sorry for my English. If we have and we move something from the one side to the other. These are aspects. The pendulum. Okay, sorry. If we have the pendulum, if you move, the further you move to the one side, the further it will move to the other side. So the further you experience grief and lower frequency emotions, the further you will experience the higher emotions like passion and love and gratefulness and kindness. But if you end up with a pendulum, which is just like that, it's like a little bit of fear, a little bit of life, and then we grow old and life has gone and we realize that we're just...
Yeah. Which is interesting from me, just reflecting on you and your personality and what you've told about me. It seemed to me like you did have like these big swings and you were able to feel passion and strong intent and yet there was still some part of you that was blocked, I suppose, or something was going on, right, for you.
Yeah, I try not to block myself, I still try not to block myself. So it's this outwards personality that people feel when they're in euphoria, and they feel that something is happening there, that, the juices are flowing again. Right.
Yeah. And so what's your experience of people when they do the work with you? Like, what are some of the things you see?
I mean, I see, it's interesting. As I said, we were doing retreats for more than 10 years, 12 years with Mary. But when we do them at Euphoria, it's so much more powerful. The land is so much powerful. What we do there is so much powerful. We do retreats in 3 days, and we really feel people that are transforming. And for me, that's a joy. When they say, "Oh my God, thank you for doing that. Thank you for walking the path with us." I mean, you feel them in the eyes. We talked about fire element. You see the fire in the eyes. So when you see bright eyes, you feel the fire in the person, that this person is alive. And we see that change. It's not the kilos they lose, but it's the glow in their skin, but most importantly, in their eyes. So for me, that's a pleasure. And it's a great opportunity because we're having our next Feel Alive retreat, which is starting on Friday. So I'm geared up for that. Yeah.
So people flying in from across the world.
Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing another one November and another one December. We're trying to do that 1 month, one per month. But it's not just a retreat. But it's also the activities we do. Like, we introduce dance and capoeira and free up your voice and forest bathing and picnics and treasure hunts. We introduce these things into our daily free activities so that people, even if they don't join the retreat, they do that in their pace. And something else about time. Time has to do with the earth element. And we talked about being in corporate world, you're so stressed about time and about goals. We ask people to take their times when they eat. We have breakfast there for 4 hours. Lunch is another 3 hours. So people stay at the terrace and, they look at the beautiful valley and they talk with people. So it's take your time. If you go to a spa and it's work, schedule after schedule, because you have to do the other treatment and you cram in as many treatments, then it's again doing the same thing what you're doing home, but in a nicer environment with nicer food. But take your time. If you don't take your time, how are you going to interact with your precious self?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. It just reminds me of skiing holidays, right? We go from this frenetic work in the city, and then we're all queuing and fighting to get on the lift and get down the hill as fast as we can, right? And get to the chalet for lunch.
Travel and go from the one place to the other. Again, this fast pace. And now Earth is saying, guys, you cannot do that. If you want to travel, slow travel,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And I suppose what's also interesting is that people may, and certainly sometimes I have this thought, right? Yes, but this goal orientation, this material orientation has given us these great treasures in life, right? What we've manifested, right, in terms of our material reality. But of course, it wasn't like the ancient Greeks weren't capable of creating beautiful things in the world, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't like they were incapable of transforming material reality.
Exactly. And they didn't, whatever they did was harmoniously aligned with the environment. It was not huge. Greeks didn't do the pyramids, which were great, but they are huge. But the Parthenon is it is as it is. It has perfect harmony. That's the beauty. And the ancient Greek statues have this harmony, this balance, this sense of moderation, which, we're trying to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love here is the way that we're approaching it is in this holistic way, because what we often, I think there's an understanding in society, right, that we're not operating in a way that's harmonious with, let's say, the earth or the environment. But then we'll just talk about that, right? And then we'll just talk about, we need to reduce our carbon emissions, or we need to do this with our cars. We don't come all the way out and look at, holistically, our lives and our orientation to our, environment, right? And we sort of focus on problem, reaction, solution, as opposed to coming all the way back to who we are. That's something I observe.
You're absolutely right. And I will go back again in the lockdown. Lockdown gave us an opportunity to do that. And then again, we rushed out of it, in a way that we forgot what we learned. And we went back to the old ways. And we stayed with the fear and with the grief, but we didn't stay with the good things that we learned about that. And it's important. COVID happened for a reason. So there are lessons to be learned there.
Yeah. Well, I would say we stayed with the fear and not the grief, right? We didn't do the grief. I think that's part of the problem. Is we haven't
the fear. You're right.
We haven't
not even the grief. Yes, not even the grief.
If we were all at home grieving, and I know what people, Richard, it's almost like you can hear the naysayer, we can't just spend our whole days, just crying and grieving. And of course that's true, but it's so important that we do that as well.
And sometimes scream, scream aloud. If you're in the car, it's so liberating to scream or punch a pillow, do something.
And we can do that now. We can turn off our camera on Zoom. We can press pause and we can go beat the cushion. You can't do that in the office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Oh, well, this has been, a wonderful conversation, Marina.
Thank you. It had a nice flow. We took our time again.
Yeah, we took our time. It was great to hear your story. And I had a very cursory look at the 5 elements before, so it was good to hear it from someone who's worked with them.
Everybody learned a little bit about the 5 elements, but they're fascinating, really fascinating. Yeah,
no, it sounds like it. And so we'll certainly put links to the retreat, in the notes for this episode. Is there anywhere else you would send people who are interested in any of the themes we've spoken about?
Anywhere else I would send to
people, the other resources or anything that you would suggest people go to.
Other resources. Based on what there's some. That's a good question. I really believe that some form of non-lateral movement of the body, it is important. Jogging and swimming are lateral movements. So you need non-lateral movements. Dancing, gyrotonics, there are ways which are not lateral. Because if you don't move your body in a non-lateral way, it opens up your mind. And it's something that they can do at home. So I would say something. Put on the music and dance. That's the best healing that you can do, and you can do it right at home. Yeah,
I love that. Don't go searching on the internet. Just put the music on and dance. Yeah. There we are. Good. All right.
Thinking, non-lateral movement.
Yeah, non-lateral movement. Yeah. No, that's very true, and I certainly find that with yoga and other just sort of more primal workouts is that it gets my emotions moving in a different way.
Yeah, Osho has bequested that a lot of that kind of work, and also another thing that now you're mentioning, I really believe in energy medicine, which is a way that we learn to work with our bodies, with our hands. We don't have to be Chinese doctors, but we can do some acupuncture, some self-pressure. For example, here it is an important, large intestine 4 is a very important point that for headaches and for unblocking our intestines. Little things like that you can find in the internet. How to work with yourself. Small things that you can do are so important. And
for those just listening, Marina was just pressing in between her thumb and finger, right? For people who are just on audio. Yeah. First finger. Yeah, sorry. And you were saying you can search for?
You can search energy medicine. You can search a lot of tools that can help you with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Good. All right.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks for being so open.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Richard.
And generous. Yeah. Thank you.
And I hope to see you some at Euphoria. And first of all, you, Richard, to see you there, talk a little bit more about that. And
I'd love to come out. I've got a kids allowed. My kids are 4.5 now.
No. You need to, I love kids, but no, kids over 12 because. Yeah, you have to relax. You need a peace. You don't have to take care of your kids. You have to take care of yourself. So
I know. All right. Well, maybe when they're a bit older. That sounds wonderful. Okay.
Exactly.
Good. All right. Well, thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Marina. What an inspiring woman she is, and what a journey she's been on. I wanted to let you know that next Thursday, a friend and colleague of mine, Claire North, are going to be running a workshop, the 5 Intelligences Foundations workshop, where we're going to explore interoception, proprioception, exteroception, emotional intelligence and conceptual intelligence, and how those 5 neural networks together, so both within our body and without, combine to enable us to have bigger impact as leaders, enhance our sense making, give us more options for action, 75 minutes next Thursday, 4 o'clock British summer times. If you'd like to join us, please head along to leadinginsideout.online. That's leadinginsideout.online. You'll find the details for the workshop. Love it if you join us and if that resonates with you. Cheers.